First, off the top, uh, tribute Mohammed Wisha and Shelley Kittleman, two journalists. The subject of today's pod is journalism and the difficulty of getting the news out these days with the walls closing in and the constitutional protections being under constant assault here and protections as they exist in other countries equally. And not surprising with the rise of authoritarianism that would happen. But for those two brave individuals, Shelley was released from custody in Iraq. Isn't it? Isn't it heartwarming to know that we're back in Iraq again? She is an intrepid journalist in good standing, and it worked in that part of the world. And I guess what they used to call a stringer. But she was. There is some video that shows that she was snatched right off the streets into a car. I couldn't imagine anything more terrifying. Um, I had it happen to me once, not as a journalist, but in a walking down a street where I didn't belong in a second city to Caracas. But that's a story for a different for another day. And I'm me and I'm mean, and that's the difference. Um, she, on the other hand, Shelley, we don't, of course, we don't describe women as attractive, but she's an attractive and reportedly extraordinarily intelligent human being who is now free and in the custody of the good guys. And one of the conditions of her release that was negotiated, I don't have the details of everything that went into that. She was held by a a Baghdad slash Iraq offshoot of Hezbollah. They're, Iraq is controlled much more by Iran than Iraqis in general, and has been for a long time. And it's a melting pot. Iraq is the one of the one of the most important historical not the country of Iraq, the swaths of land there, the Euphrates, and a lot of historical sites, a lot of important religious sites, many of which were damaged under Saddam Hussein, who was. I don't know that Saddam spent all that much time in the mosque. But we don't have to worry about him anymore. He is not in the custody of the United States, even though his semi-pseudo doppelganger Nicolas Maduro is. And there's going to be so much more delight ahead with Nicolas Maduro, because he's going to come out and say that he was on the grassy knoll. He was he happened to be having dinner in Buckhead in Atlanta on the night of the election, and saw a spaceship land and cast a whole bunch of ballots in 2020. And then, just for good measure, I'm sure they're going to pull a rabbit out of the hat or something out of a more sensitive part of their own anatomy, and talk about something else that Nicolas Maduro knows about election interference in the United States. And then he'll get a pardon, which he will have paid for, and he will ride off into the sunset in a year or two, something. There will be a show trial, I'm sure, He, of course, he legitimately was involved in the drug trade. That's not, I'm not minimizing that. He was, he and the people that are currently running Venezuela were on the payroll essentially of cartels that moved product from Colombia through Venezuela to to Mexico, to the United States via Haiti, and from Venezuela to Africa, further into Europe. I mean, it was that was a major transshipment point without any resistance. I joke about if you go to visit and have a glass of wine late at night on the beach of Chichiriviche, which is in Falcon State in Venezuela. You can, if you're armed and you're an intrepid soul, you can watch the the cartels move the shit from trucks onto go fast boats and off into the night. It's a delightful entertainment for the real somebody with an adventurous spirit, because you can of course catch strays with that kind of ecotourism, but at least you'll have a story to tell the kids. So Mohammed, on the other hand, died a miserable death today, late last night. Today, a car he was traveling in was struck by an Israeli drone, and the car it struck, and car burst into flames. And Mohammed, who was an accredited journalist from Al Jazeera, died. He was burned alive in the car. Mohammed was, in round numbers, the 250th journalist, and I'm going to, in the bucket of journalists, you know, cameramen, assistant, journalism teams, accredited and with the proper placards and all that, the 250th that has been killed in Gaza since October 7th. Now, I'm not downplaying in any way, shape, or form the level of the atrocity committed against Israel and her people on that fateful day. We can all stipulate that it was one of the cruelest crimes since, perhaps since the Holocaust itself. It was heinous and evil. If you're into that evil, I mean, it doesn't mean that much to me, but it describes quite accurately some of the things that were visited upon these beautiful young concert goers, the people that lived in the kibbutz, the kibbutz plural, which I'm gonna mess up on, the people, the humans that were killed, raped, tortured, and many captured and taken hostage and dragged back to Gaza and kept in captivity in horrible circumstances. Many died, and some came home. Unspeakable, and no excuse for it. But Bibi and Israel have a track record, hand in hand with his program to kneecap the judiciary in Israel. And much like what Trump is doing here in the United States, what Orban has done very successfully in Hungary, where your vice president was just fluffing Victor, traveling all that way to fluff Victor, for Putin an American vice president, a man on your payroll, foreign country, influence elections for a foreign dictator. Magnificent. I mean, just if you have the stomach for it, take a look into if you can stomach it, listen to some of the things. The most some of J.D. Vance is one of the most cynical politicians in the last 20 or 30 years because he is getting so incredibly expert at lying cynically without hesitate. He's getting very good. He's getting too good at it, which concerns me for his ability to advocate for himself on the campaign trail. Marco Rubio, probably was pretty good in debate club. May have participated in moot court at law school, Rubio, University of Miami. May have done well. He's he's a U.S. senator, former U.S. senator. He's a slick talker. He's uh, he's uh, 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 he's an effective communicator. But JD has the ability to weaponize the art of communication in a way that Marco Rubio doesn't. I don't think Marco has the wiring to lie as cynically and as quickly and effortlessly as JD does. And the what he was saying when he was criticizing, of course, what they all do, what Vance did at the Munich Security Conference the year before. Marco did a little bit at Munich this year, but to absolutely verbally eviscerate their European allies, members of the EU, for what? We know what Trump's position in this entire power structure is. He is the number one uh, supplicant to Putin. And as we talked about, Putin is a forward-thinking kind of action guy. He's a planner. He's an intelligent, shrewd, effective killer. And is he trying everything he can to maintain continuity in the level of influence he has in the executive branch of the U.S. government? Of course he is. That's what he does. That's what he thinks his job. I mean, if he wants to restore the Russian Empire to what in his mind it once was, Ukraine, rebuild Donbass. Don't get me started on what he's thinking about up in the Nordic region because it's too depressing to think about before dinner. But these are bad people, and the playbook on press suppression, on silencing the press, on putting shackles on them, on even Putin holds elections every once in a while, but they don't. There's the outcome is predetermined. It's not. There's no. Old Voda doesn't like mystery, unless he's doing role play with some Epstein employees. He doesn't want to leave anything to chance. So he wants, if he could line up JD and or Usha to be on deck for when Trump face plants or walks out the door or travels to The Hague, however he goes out. then nothing would make Vladimir any happier. But look at what's gone. Look at the White House and look at the Pentagon. You know, this the being attacked by a bug. The we talked about Shelley and about Mohammed. Rest in peace, Mohammed. Mohammed, one of 250 dead credentialed press corps members in Gaza and the surrounding area, and Lebanon is just going to be more of the same. Do I recognize that Iranian proxies populate certain parts of Lebanon and have with impunity because the Lebanese government is weak? Yes, I recognize that. I've talked before on this about my affinity for Beirut, both in a physical and actual sense. But decades before I was even in that part of the world, Beirut had a lore as the kind of the hub of journalism. If you talked about, I was a foreign correspondent in the late 70s and the 80s in the Middle East, chances are you were in Beirut because that was where, the bureau of every major paper had their writers or a stringer or, a correspondent. It was the center of the universe. And there were, the most sophisticated, people from Le Monde and Der Spiegel, and for all over the world. Not just lots of dirty with Brits all over the place, and dirty with CIA and MI6. It was Spy Central, which just makes it the most delightful. If you can put yourself back in time to that place, it was the most exciting city in the world. It wasn't as glamorous as Paris as a whole. It didn't have that kind of allure. But if you wanted some excitement, if you wanted to check into a hotel room and not be surprised to learn that somebody left their AK underneath the bed and checked out and forgot about it, it was probably Beirut. It could have been. And I understand, trying to be fair, balanced, and open-minded, that there is a legitimate risk to Israeli citizens from Iranian proxies present in Beirut. Bibi and the IDF more generally have lost all proportionality in this whole process, and it's been quite a while. Bibi has kind of like Bibi's much smarter than Pastor Pete Hegseth. He's a much more intelligent man. Bibi's 80 or getting close to it. He's an experienced operator. As I mentioned before, his brother is lionized in that country, as he was the one soldier that was killed on the raid on Entebbe, Bibi's brother. So Bibi's been in the game for a long time. Bibi's also trying to stay in power and avoid a corruption conviction that might result. Will they put him in prison in his 80s? I don't know. Will Trump figure out some way to get Herzog, some sort of pardon? I mean, Trump hands them out like candy, but in other parts of the world, it means something, and people need accountability. Trump doesn't want any of that, and he's pushing back against it, and it's going to be hard for us to get accountability with Donald Trump at any point, but it doesn't mean we ain't going to try because he deserves it. So that's press freedoms. Challenging across the Middle East right now, it's for obvious reasons. Challenging in Israel because the protections have been chopped to pieces with an axe by Bibi, because he can control the media, then he can control the narrative, and he's that kind of guy. He's kind of under that the same Voda umbrella that Trump is, and ascribes to the same playbook as Trump does. Back here, the White House. I mean, as soon as Trump was back into the office, how long did it take him to revoke AP's credentials? Huge thing, because AP, as you know, Associated Press, is kind of part of the infrastructure of pool news or news pools. Not not every publication can afford or can get credentialed to have a representative on site and traveling with the president on every excursion. Excursion for Donald. I saved that for you, sir. So they pool the report, and that means that you can get a competent breakdown of a particular event from your brothers and sisters that are members of that same corps, the press corps at the White House. They shook that apart. Carolyn freaking Levitt. The used to be that there was the press organization. I'm, is it the White House press corps? That organization, I'm blanking on it'll come back to me. But that the ones that were credentialed and allowed to get the prime seats in the White House, because an old building, or not for long, that again, not every paper in the universe could have a seat in the press briefings, right? So the organization, the press themselves, would make those decisions, and kind of like a union, which is the best way to do it. Carolyn Levitt and the White House took that back from the press corps, and then they could control access to the president. What's more authoritarian than that? That is straight Viktor Orban, which is Putin sub Orban sub Trump. You know? One very fit judo master, and two guys who are horizontally challenged. Right? I'll go down the street to the Pentagon. Pistol Pete, Pastor Pete. He's been slapped down by a district court judge that said you can't do this. That's not the way that it works with that whole Constitution thing there, Pete. So cease, desist, start behaving yourself. But because it's Pete, and just like his master, he doesn't like hearing no, and he thinks he's smarter. And he's a weekend, fucking talk show host, Pastor Pete. So what they're doing is they're playing games, and they are, they did you have to sign this, or you can't get into the briefing room. You have to say that you're going to pre-clear any story with the Pentagon before you release it. And hey, why don't you just tell us all of your sources, all of the shit, and a lot of the news outlets, including Fox, New York Times, The Atlantic, and others, said no, we're not doing that. And they took a principled stand, which makes their job more difficult. But you stand on principle because Trump will not, even though he threatens to be there forever, he won't be. And you stand on principle because you have to do it for the next member of the next press corps that relied on you to stand up. It's much like the Senate and John Thune and his refusal to show some courage means that he is watching his the body, the United States Senate, that he took an oath to protect and defend. By being a coward, he's allowing the corrosion of the U.S. Senate, which means that in 5 years, 10 years, when John Thune is roping cattle in the Dakotas or whatever the fuck you do up there, then the next guy will have a less austere and the, they're stripping, the kind of the bona fides of the Senate. It was always looked upon as, it's the upper house. It's the more dignified house. The house the House of Representatives was always the rabble. That was the first time in office, kind of the unwashed. But the Senate was very dignified, and they conducted themselves in a particular way and ate politely in the cloaks, in their own dining room, and two martini lunches on your dime, and had a steak and went home, and repeat. But that's being chipped away at by John Thune. He's not doing the chipping; he's just allowing it to happen. Mike Johnson, he didn't belong there in the first place. He just got in because he licked Trump's butt, and and Trump seemed to like it a little bit. The Pentagon, the latest game that's been very entertaining is that they've been said, okay, no problem. You have to have an escort take you around the building, and you're only allowed in this one. The Pentagon is a massive building, so you can go to travel between, stay on floor 2 and 3 on this side of the building only, check in with security, and if you have an appointment to speak to anybody, then fill in this form, and we'll have an escort take you to see. And so the entire process, the overarching theme is chilling of speech. You hear it, you hear that, read it in the news or hear it in the podcast every single day. And chilling is, the effect is immediate, and it endures also. So if you limit one one question only 5 members of the press in the briefing, and only one question only. Pete was angry because the photographer took the picture with the side that he thought wasn't his good side, or whatever the hell that was, a couple weeks ago. But yeah, and they just clamp it down a little bit at a time. They put the restrictions on the White House pool. At the Pentagon, they say the Atlantic's not there. The New York Times won that suit in district court, but the Pentagon will appeal. Will they put a TRO that'll allow the Times back in the building pending the appeal? I'm not sure. There seems to be a fair amount of news around, but they will undoubtedly appeal, because appeals are easy for them because they're spending your money. You know, they don't have to go out and hire an attorney. They have attorneys. They've fired a lot of them. Well, certainly the Jags, but the president, Todd Blanche, sits in for Pamela Joe Bondi, and is now attacking what's her name, Cassidy Hutchinson, if I got that right. Sure. They're doing it to chill speech, to chill protest. United States, we haven't, as far as I know, there hasn't been any accredited members of the press killed, but there have been 50 odd injured since Trump has come back into office. And your friend and mine, Don Lemon, gets arrested. What kind of message does that send? The fact that they didn't arrest Joe Smith, some ne'er-do-well podcaster, uh, uh, kicking it outside as the sun goes down. But it's Don fucking Lemon, you know, a very high profile. Everybody knows you're on CNN. Everybody knows you, and he's fighting the good fight, and he's doing it uh, in a way that helps all of us in a way, because he's doing it he's reinvented himself in the new media mold, and he's out there, love him, like him, hate him, or want to have his children, whatever it is. He is out there doing it for himself, God bless, but doing it for the rest of us too, and is, a very vocal advocate for other members of the press. So we need more of that. So chilling. That's what chilling the First Amendment. I will wish you all a beautiful evening, and we will say a prayer for Mohammed and his family, who already miss him very much, I'm sure, and try to be better humans. I don't know that there's much hope for BB or DJT, but the rest of us, we have to make a little bit of an effort. So thank you, and enjoy, uh, share, restack, retweet, subscribe, etc., and have a beautiful night. And I'll catch up with you sometime tomorrow. Thank you very much.